876 Investor again. Here we are. It's IPO season. And you know how all things goes, we like to get the exclusive interviews. So today is myself, Schaunn-Anthony Thomas. We have Nicholas Dundas, and we're joined by Gordon Swaby, the CEO and Co-Founder of Edufocal Limited. Gordon, if you could just introduce yourself a bit for the viewers who don't know you.
Greetings, viewers. Gordon Swaby, CEO of Edufocal Limited. I'm a native of Christiana, Manchester, and university dropout. Yeah, man, that's it for me. Oh, no, how can I forget? I'm a father of one. I have a son. He's almost 2 years old. His name is Alexander. And I am a husband to Kemisha, or I'm the husband, not one of. She only has one husband. I'm the husband of Kemisha Swaby, my beautiful wife, and pillar of strength. Yeah, and an amazing mother.
Love that. All right, so Gordon, tell us a little bit about your background before you started Edufocal here.
Yeah.
What were you like before?
So I went. As I mentioned earlier, I'm from Christiana, Manchester. Most people don't know Christiana, know Mandeville. So Christiana is the second major town in Manchester, and it's about 10 minutes from Mandeville. I went to Sacred Heart Academy. I went to Knox College, Knox Community College, Homewood Technical High School, UTech, and I decided not to pursue my bachelor's in computer science going into my second year at UTech. When I was about, I'd say 14, 15 years old, I started what was arguably the largest video gaming resource website in the Caribbean called Advanced Gamers, right? Which is really the genesis of Edufocal and how this whole gamification concept came about. Mm-hmm. So how it would work was that on Advanced Gamers, so it was accessible at advanced-gamers.com. On Advanced Gamers, what would happen is that we'd have cheats, previews, reviews, a forum, a membership forum with let's say over 5,000 people. And how we made money was from ads, right? Google AdSense. So, it was PPC, pay-per-click. Every time somebody clicked an ad on the site, we would earn money. And when you hit the $100 US threshold, they'd send you a check. Or you could cash out via Western Union. Did that for about 6 years, and as a consequence of that, I got written up in the Gleaner. Right, the article is still around actually. Teenager makes career from gaming website was the title. Still remember it to this day because it was the first time that I was in a newspaper. I remember what country I come from, so that's a big deal. But I guess it's a big deal for anybody. But for me, you grow up in a very rural area, seeing all these people in the newspaper, the Gleaner. It was a massive deal. And I actually had reached out to the Gleaner to write about me, which I found at the time to be a very bold and audacious move on my part, because my philosophy around that was if you're not selling yourself, nobody's going to sell you, right? You have to kind of push and put out there what it is that you're doing. But my life's dream and my life's ambition was actually to write for the Gleaner, because I grew up reading the Gleaner's Youth Link, and I'd always look at the byline. I'm like, this is so cool. Long story short, I pulled it off, started writing for the Youth Link, and that was my what you call it now, baptism into Kingston life. So I moved to Kingston permanently for school, and I've been here ever since. But really working at the Gleaner opened up the door for me to meet a lot of people, to network with a lot of people. And, if you follow me on Twitter, I talk a lot about networking, because competence and just really building on your own knowledge aside, there is great value in building relationships and not building it from a place of exploitation, but just genuinely building relationships with people, because people do business with people that they trust, right? And when you look at schools like Campion, Wolmer's, George's, they have strong networks of people who have gone on to do great things. And I think young people should leverage that big time. But if I could talk about that all day, and that could be the entire thing, but that just kind of gives you an idea of my background. I've always been in technology. I've always been into computers, and here I am now. Great. I'm grateful. I'm grateful.
So how exactly did the transition from the gaming side to the birth of Edufocal come about?
So basically this concept of it actually started as a conversation with my cousin. Actually, he messaged me on Facebook. He had this idea based on advanced gamers, and he was actually involved in it for like a month, but he was busy with school. And I'm like, yo, I love this. I'm going to run with it. And I built on the idea. I came up with the name, or rather, it was my mother that came up with the name Edufocal. I was living on Richings Avenue, which is on Hope Road there, and the name of the complex is actually Focal Point. So we're brainstorming names one day. She came by like, why don't you call it Focal Edu, based on the name of the complex? But I'm like, nah, Edufocal, and that was the history of the name. So yeah, but yeah, it was this. So gamification is using game-like elements in non-game context. You can so think about it this way. The example I like to use is this. Let's say you have some folks and you want them to lose weight. You could give them Fitbits, you could give them an Apple Watch or whatever. You can track their steps. Each step could be a point. You have a TV mounted in a particular place with a leaderboard, and you're seeing the person's name. And for every step they take, they're earning points, and they're just competing against each other every day for points, or competing with each other every day for prizes. It could be time off from work, whatever. Right. So when I was talking about gamification in 2012, nobody was talking about gamification. Nobody knew what the hell it was. It's just like, oh, you're championing this gamification idea. I don't talk about it much anymore. Because for me at the time I was using that as our unique selling point or value proposition, like, hey, your child can study for their exam in a different way, and it worked. I also consider myself somebody who's pretty savvy with marketing, even though I've never been formally trained in marketing, but when I'm ready to activate the marketing machine, I do. Yeah. But yeah, so that's kind of the history.
Right, and I know originally when you came out, you were looking at the higher level CSEC and that level. What were the challenges that you experienced up there?
Yeah, man, that's a crazy story, right? So we started with CSEC Math and English with like 100 questions, because at the time we were only creating asynchronous content, questions and answers. I'm not sure what I was thinking at the time, but in my eyes, 100 questions each, 200 questions total was a decent amount of content. So we had this big launch at the Jamaica Pegasus, March 15, 2012. We launched with Math, CSEC, Math, English. And, I'd say for the first week, we got a lot of traction. And but it just wasn't working out, right? And I think that, when I think about my time in Edufocal, there have been some very defining moments, right? And, we started with CSEC, Math, and English, and, the traction was great initially. It kind of slowed down, and I'd say maybe 2 months in. So 2 months after March, so, talking about late May there, about May 2012, I was like, yo, it's not working, we're not getting the traction that we want. And I think I was going to kind of call things quits 2 months into it. But I went to bed one night, and I got up and I'm like, you know what, maybe we should try GSAT. And I tried GSAT. We added the content to the platform, but we still had to be fighting to get content, right? So I approached eLearning Jamaica. I approached a bunch of places. In fact, eLearning Jamaica kind of, turned us down. Ironically, I'm actually on the eLearning Jamaica board.
Really? That's what I was just gonna say. It's like, yes, but now you're on the board.
Yeah, man. So again, there's a lot of story right there, right? And the Observer, we went to the Observer and they turned us down too. But then I got a call from Nove McDonald White, saying that she saw me in the press. She's super impressed with what I'm doing. She'd love to do an interview with me. And I went, and she was super impressed. And right around that time, Danville Walker was becoming the managing director at Observer. So I got introduced to him. I remember at that point in time, that was the biggest boardroom I've ever seen in my life. Biggest boardroom and the biggest boardroom table. Mind you, I didn't have much comparison because I didn't really go to a lot of boardrooms at that point in time. So it blew my mind. But I was in this room with, corporate executives, and I'm this young guy, because remember at the time I would have been like 21. But we negotiated a decent deal. For about 2 years, we had every single Sunday, codes were placed in every single Sunday Observer. Like somebody literally went through all, I can't mention the amount of observers that were being printed at the time, but basically it's a lot of them, thousands, right? And, it was a big thing and we were paid for each code. they pay us for each code, right? And getting the observer to pay you is a big deal, if you understand how the observer is set up. But we were being paid, and that was going on for about 2 years. We got content from them, and a lot of advertising, and that's really what helped to bolster the platform with PEP content. Sorry, let me not say PEP. It wasn't PEP at the time. GSAT content, and things just started to take off. It's 2013 now. This is January 2013 when we had the Observer Edufocal partnership launch. What I found interesting so far in a lot of the analysis I'm seeing is that nobody actually goes out and does the research outside of the prospectus, even though there's a lot of articles just around the history of Edufocal, because we've been in the media and I've been extensively, and Edufocal has been extensively covered since 2012, right? So we have a very interesting history, and things have just kind of worked out in our favor for that. And I mean, I'm very persistent, right? I'm very, very persistent. I don't give up easily, and I'm happy that we stuck it out, because we started to see the returns before COVID. We started to see some solid returns 2019, of course going into 2020, but we actually started the IPO process early 2020, right? We started talking to Mayberry February 2020. I didn't know, because that year actually we were anticipating significant growth, right? Because we started to see the uptake, and things were we're closing out a bunch of people, so things were getting traction. So the numbers that we hit in 2020, we actually had anticipated those numbers before. But yeah, that's kind of some of the history there.
That's interesting. Before we stray too far into the Edufocal specific talk, I just want to ask, what made you decide to drop out of school, and what made you decide to start this business so young? Like, what gave you that drive to say, I can do this at this age?
So both my parents are entrepreneurs. My mother is a chartered accountant. My father is, I guess, what you'd call a serial entrepreneur. He doesn't use that phrase, So, but their stories are inspiring to me. So my father ran this restaurant in Christiana called Tops for most of my life, and I thought that was just what everybody did. You just get into business and you just do business, right? So I was never a big fan of school, right? It's just always felt, ironically, right, felt like rote learning. It felt like, I'm trying to be as politically correct as possible, right? But there was no value there for me, to be honest with you. And I'm not, I have to be careful, because I say to people all the time, I would never advocate not going to university or dropping out of university, because my circumstances were different. You have to take your own personal circumstances into consideration. University education can be valuable if, one, you know why you're doing it, i.e., genuine pursuit of knowledge, and two, if it's great for networking, right? So I had a policy in Edufocal for a very long time. I guess it's changed now, but in listing jobs, I never asked for any kind of degree. I'm not really involved in HR stuff as much anymore, at least not from that perspective. So I guess it's not listed there by default. But I've personally never cared if somebody has university education or not, at least for most jobs. Certainly for some of the things that we do in the company, like the CFO role, the teachers, it does require some credentials. But what are my credentials? I have no, I have no form of formal education, if you want to call it that. But my big vision for Edufocal actually ties in with my philosophy around learning and education, which we can touch on a little bit more. But the world has changed, and when universities started to kind of emerge, because they've not always been around. Some of our greatest philosophers, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, all of these guys, there was no university for them to go to, right? So the point I'm making is it's a fairly modern concept, centered around industrialization and basically churning out people who can, follow instructions and so on and so forth. But again, that's a whole other conversation. I think we could talk about that for an hour. I guess some of my views around that is controversial, and a lot of people do get offended by it, because it evokes an emotional response, especially if somebody is in school. So again, I'm never saying don't go to university. I'm saying don't go because you want to get a job, right? That can't be the reason, right? You go because you are actually in the pursuit of knowledge. And how a university is set up, in other words, is set up in a very structured way. That way actually works for a lot of people. But for me, it was never a thing. I just couldn't learn. I've always been an average student. I've always been an average student in school. It's just never my thing. So yeah, this we raised some money in 2013, unofficially, and I asked my father if I could take some time off from school, and he said yes. I was genuinely surprised. And when I took the time off, I kind of felt dirty. I felt like I wasn't actually doing anything. But it was at that point that I think I started to take Edufocal a little bit more seriously. I'm like, yo, it's real. It's live or die. Like I'm no longer in school. I've taken the time off. I have to take this thing seriously. And yeah, the rest is history.
Yeah, I would tend to agree that you shouldn't just go to school just for going to school's sake. It should be to pursue something that you're at the very least, even if you don't love it, you're at least interested in.
Yeah. So
I definitely agree with that.
I found that there's a sense of entitlement around having a degree where people like, have a degree, you should hire me. No. I'm hiring you for your knowledge, not for your degree. What the purpose of the degree is to actually signal competence and ability to follow instructions, which really does not always translate into the real world, right? So it's great that you have a degree, but you're not being hired for your degree. You're being hired for your ability to learn and the skill set that you are supposed to have developed through your 3 or 4 year tenure at that particular university. Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah. But that's controversial. Yeah, I mean, no. So again, right? So when you think about education, when you think about learning, because I read a lot, for example, right? And Bloomberg, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, Gleaner Observer, I read everything, right? And I'm always in the pursuit of knowledge. So if I am learning, is that not education, right? So I think with where the world is going, and again, long story, long conversation, but Jamaica as a post-colonial society, we value education, but we equate education with having a degree when it is not necessarily so. Entering into this new dimension of the 4th industrial revolution and rethinking how people learn, things are changing so quickly that by the time you leave university, what you've learned is relevant, right? So learning is not about learning a specific thing, but the ability to kind of consume information and convert it into knowledge and apply it to your life, right? So for me, where Jamaica is going, by the way, we have a declining birth rate, right? So we are actually projected.
That's most of the world.
Yeah, we are actually projected to have a decrease in population over the next coming very soon. For a number of factors, net migration numbers, etc., right? We have to. So the labor that we do have, the solution, in my opinion, can't be to send them into a 4-year degree program. It ain't gonna happen. When you have 200,000 kids leaving secondary school each year and 30% of them can't read and write, you really think you can send them to university, right? When you have the BPO sector gobbling up so much of our labor, not necessarily tertiary level labor, but secondary school level labor, manufacturing, construction, etc. So what you're going to end up what is going to end up happening is that we're going to start importing people, right? But there will still be people here on the ground in Jamaica who are unemployable because they're not being trained, right? So I see my mission, my vision, my philosophy around what we're doing at Edufocal is a cradle to grave approach, right? We should be able to train kids as early as kindergarten, right up to the end of the secondary school level, certify them, match them with employers, right? That ultimately is the vision. And when they're matched with employers, we're also playing a role in the workplace by offering ongoing training in the workplace for different things and then earning at every step of the way. So when I say to people that Edufocal is not a pet company, it's kind of hard to appreciate because that's fine, because that's what I've marketed Edufocal as for 9 years. So that is what people associate the company with. Because when you have a limited marketing budget, limited resources, you don't have the ability to kind of put everything out there into the marketplace. People think that Grace is a manufacturing company. Grace is a finance company, right? Like, haven't looked at their numbers in a while, but I believe that they make most of their money from that side. The margins on what they do on the manufacturing side is very small, or I guess in some instances non-existent. But what gives Grace visibility? Their products on the shelves, not First Global Bank, not GK Remittance, the products that they have on the shelf. So yeah, it's fine. I had to be strategic how I marketed the company. Now I have to kind of, ramp things up and, reshape how Edufocal is perceived. Because of how we're perceived, the question that would inevitably come is, okay, schools are reopened, they make money. And my response to that is, well, if you read the prospectus, we speak about the learn division, the business division.
Yes.
Whether schools are
Deep
open
cuts,
or
Gordon.
closed. Yeah, whether schools are open or closed, we're still going to make money, and the world has permanently changed, right? I'm the one getting the calls about different business opportunities, so I can tell you that it's neither it's almost as if people can't appreciate that we were around before the pandemic and we were actually making money in schools. We actually had sales reps going to schools. We have relationships with hundreds of schools, relationships that we maintain to this day. It does not matter that schools have reopened. In fact, in my same CEO's letter, I say certainly the pandemic, COVID has kind of, I'm not even use the word kind of, certainly the pandemic has kind of pushed that kind of. And it has pushed things forward for us a lot in terms of it has expedited plans that we already had in the pipeline. Now, if you look at our numbers, if you look at our 5 years, I'm pretty sure that if we were trying to list in 2020, based on 2019 numbers, we moved from 26 million in revenue to 102. Somebody looking on would say, but you're trying to list no. So let's say we're listing Q1 2020, right? 2019 numbers. The conversation would be like, there's no way you can make $102 million when your revenue in the prior year was 26 and even lower in the previous years.
Right.
But the reason that they're looking at us like that is because they're thinking about us like a traditional business, and we're not, right? So I think it is important to contextualize things because we are not a normal business. We are a tech company, So I think there has to be an appreciation for that. Google started out in search, right? So even that conversation around, okay, it's volatile, they've still figuring. Every company is figuring things out. Every single company is figuring things out, right? Google started in search, now they're in email, they're in everything, right? But at their core, they're still an ad. Google is an ad company. That's what Google does, right? So at our core, we'll always be a company that is involved in learning, but not necessarily PEP, because people learn different things. Nurses, accountants, lawyers, real estate agents. I could go on. There are a long list of people who need ongoing learning, certification, etc., etc. So, yeah.
That's good. There's definitely some stuff we want to touch on too, because as I said to you earlier before we hopped on, Dundas and I are the ones who went through the prospectus and did the breakdown. So some of those opportunities and things that you're talking about are things that we theorized about and put forward. So we'll definitely get into these things. I just some major deep cuts you're pulling on early in the video. After I just really wanted to say it was ironic how you dropped out of school and now you're in an education focused business. That's really all I wanted to bring with it.
But not only that, Mayberry has never bet on a loser. Mayberry doesn't bet on losers, right?
That's a very true point.
Very serious.
They've never bet on a company that has not done well on the stock exchange, specifically the junior market. So clearly, the Mayberry team, they are onto something. They know something. I'm not being listed because I'm a nice guy. I'm being listed because obviously Edufocal, has the opportunity to we're very uniquely positioned to grow at an exponential pace. And that's not a promise. I'm just saying, it's possible.
The potential exists.
The potential certainly. Of course, there's risk. There's risk in everything, right? And at the end of the day, if you as an investor believe that we're a good fit for your portfolio, then by all means jump in, right? If we're not, then that's fine, because you require all kinds of companies to make up a stock market, right? And I think it is important that investors have options, right? So some people may want to be flippers, they jump in, they jump out, while other people may hold for the long term and benefit from the upside, so I see it.
So in terms of what the company represents overall, I know there's a lot of talk about Pep. Pep has been that's the primary part of business for now. So that's the impression people really have when they hear of Edufocal. But you're saying that really and truly it's much more than that. I've been saying it. Schaunn said that I talk about the company's potential a lot more than what they are now. I see some very long legs for Edufocal, but I mean it's not my company.
So I would say looking at MJE's portfolio. We're gonna join that portfolio soon.
Big
anyway.
talk.
Yeah,
look at MJE's portfolio. There's a lot of opportunity, for us and for others. So,
all right. So hold on though. So break it down. You're talking about how Mayberry and their how they don't bet on losers and these kind of things, and how you're going to drive the portfolio, the MJE portfolio. So what makes now the right time to list?
So look at it this way. I've spent my team and I have spent the last 10 years de-risking the company. I would never have wanted to list Edufocal. In fact, my original vision was to list in 5 years, but we were not ready to list 5 years ago. We're ready to list now. And I say that because nobody could have anticipated, maybe one or two people, nobody could have anticipated a COVID-19, right? And a lot of the things that are now the norm seemed far-fetched 5 years ago. In fact, the environment when we launched was dial-up internet was still a thing, 56 kbp. We're just kind of leaving that era. Claro, right, was in the market trying to kind of break through. It was largely digital and flow, and we didn't have any 4G or 5G, and Jamaica's internet penetration numbers were still low, but it was really bad back then. So can you imagine how crazy people thought I was? Like I was on Twitter in 2012 when we launched Edufocal, and people were saying, but this can't work, right? I remember that, right? I remember people saying, oh, you're calling yourself a CEO and you don't have no employees, right? So I'm fine. I'm used to critics, and it's fine to bet against Edufocal, but at the end of the day, nobody has ever invested in a company and regretted it. And I have no plans of that starting now, right? So we are, a post-listed Edufocal is a different company. I mean, the balance sheet will be different. We'll have next to no debt, right? We'll have a decent amount of cash on hand. We'll have the ability to raise funds at very, very affordable rates, longer tenure. It's just, it's truly going to be an amazing opportunity. And obviously the exposure we get from listing, the association with Mayberry and the associated companies of Mayberry, there's a lot of opportunity for collaboration. It's truly, truly, truly exciting to me. But hey, I'm biased. I'm the CEO, right? I'm going to bet on my stock. I'm going to bet on Edufocal. So everybody can have their opinion. But we got the green light from Mayberry, and I trust Gary and Chris's judgment, and they believed that it was time for us to list, and that's what's most important to me. That's all the validation I need, and my management team believes that our employees are hyped up, ready to go, and I suspect the investors that will be jumping on the Edufocal IPO when we're oversubscribed will believe in that too. So I don't need to convince everybody, I don't need to convince everybody. I just need to convince the right people, So that's
this guy, this guy don't play around. And that's a great answer. But talk to me about financing for a little bit now. How did you get the startup capital? Dundas and I noticed that of course, being the technological nature of the company, you've had to attract debt at some
some
very
crazy.
high interest rates.
Yeah, and we need that story
Um,
particularly because
so we need to talk about how you deal with going through that point where you have to get all of these crazy high interest rates, and then why you then decided to say, all right, I'm gonna shift a little bit, I'm gonna sell some equity, I'm gonna do a preference share issue, I'm gonna take a loan with an option in there in case of an IPO. What talk to me about how you think about the financing and how all of those points came together.
So, I mean, I wasn't, you have to remember again, context is important, right? I never understood debt and equity at 21 years old when I started Edufocal, and nobody was having that conversation with me. I did not have that level of sophistication around me, right? So I was not, I was not saying, all right, yeah, we can structure it. In fact, nobody who's going to structure a deal for a 21-year-old kid who has no idea what he's doing, right? But my level of sophistication around finance started to evolve. And it is actually reflected in the growth of the company. When I started to become a little bit more sophisticated, understanding the Edufocal more, understanding the marketplace a little bit more, understanding what pref shares are, understanding debt to equity ratio, that started to impact the company positively. We started with a loan from NCB via DBJ through a facility that they had in 2012, secured by a building that my parents have. Even that building, by the way, and I mean, the story of my parents is also an amazing story. People who started with little to nothing, just going through that entrepreneurial journey, and they believed in what I was doing. This 21-year-old kid who had no idea what he was, in what he was, what he was getting himself into. They believed in that. The bank believed in that, and we got the loan. That loan at the time. So we don't have that loan anymore. We still have another loan with NCB that, if you look on our balance sheet, is about to be cleared. I believe it was like $800,000. Don't quote me on the number, up to I think September. But I remember when paying $120 something thousand a month for a loan was a lot of money for us, right? Now we're doing $5 million in a month. So the thing is, there has been an evolution of the business. There has been an evolution about how I think about money, because and I was saying it to somebody the other day, when we broke that $26 million revenue threshold, it was like a new vista for me, right? It created a new level of confidence in me that, this thing it has legs, it can grow. But also remember too that while I was growing the company, the environment was also changing. I always talk about the fact that a lot of people don't remember at 2012 Jamaica. You're talking about debt to GDP ratio of like 140, 160, some ridiculous numbers, right? It was a different time. It was a crazy time. It was right around that time that Jamaica was on the brink of defaulting. That's when we had the what was it called? Brain is tired right now. The debt swap, whatever it was called, but there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on at that point in time. Me not even having appreciation for the external environment that was around me and that I was operating in, and how a Jamaica growing, even if it is relatively small growth, also had a positive impact on the business itself, right? So, one, I was young, didn't have much experience, didn't have that level of sophistication or network to structure anything with anybody, right? Two, all I knew was just debt. I mean, I didn't know that I could sell a piece of the company to raise money. So as I evolved, as I matured, as I kind of settled into my own role as CEO, I realized that there were opportunities out there for us, right? And I leveraged those opportunities, built a strong network. How we raised money from Kevin Donaldson, for example, Roots Financial in the prospectus. I called Kevin. And by the way, I didn't go to school with Kevin. I didn't have, I didn't get introduced to him in any way. I probably went to an event, met him, told him what we were doing. He said he heard about it, exchanged numbers, and it was someone I just kept in touch with, right? And, Kevin had just exited Sagicor Investments at the time. I called him, I said, heard what was going on. And, we started chatting on the phone. This was last year, April. Yeah, around last year, April, yeah, man. So I said to Kevin, we're looking to raise some funds, and I didn't call him with the intention of raising money. I was just checking in, and he asked how much money I need, And I kind of paused for a moment because like I was going to say this big number, or at least in my head, I thought it was a big number. It's like, we need $50 million. I'm like, yeah, man, that can be done. I raised that money to Kevin in like 3 weeks. It was the fastest time, because remember this, before that time, I was only used to getting money through banks. And you're talking about 2-3 months, paperwork, adjudication. That's all I knew. So I raised this money from Kevin, and mind blowing. And it was right around the same time that I was having a conversation with Mayberry and everything was developing. And again, my level of sophistication would have been developing before that, but just everything kind of culminated in a particular period. That just kind of we benefited from. So yeah, I hope that answers your question in a very long-winded way, but certainly, I believe in Edufocal, and I've put a lot of money into the company personally. It's my greatest asset. I have no other asset, and I'm 31 years old, right? I've never worked anywhere else really. So, I'm all in, and I'm very much, my sense of conviction around what I do is not because of money, because I could have gone an easier path. There are other things I could have done that were far easier. But I believe in the mission and what we're doing, but I also have a healthy appreciation for the top and bottom line and the importance of giving investors a positive return on their investment. So for me, you can make a lot of money, but you can also do a lot of good. And it is important that everybody has guiding principles in their life, because it makes decision making easier. So I know what to say yes to, I know what to say no to. If it does not fit into my matrix of what I believe to be, this is going to take us along the path, or it's going to advance the mission that I have. So yeah.
I see you had mentioned, once again, you had mentioned the need to clear debt recently. You said you had spent some serious time before the IPO trying to get the company less levered.
Yeah.
I see that now is the time where, the purpose of the IPO, those proceeds will go largely towards clearing debt, short-term debt. And that's something that really sparked my attention, because, I mean, for me, all I see is just that, COVID happened, and you had a point in time where the company had to turn around and really just had to just throw all that in, and ensure that you do what needs to be done. But you can understand the story behind, because, I mean, the short-term debt was kind of like the interest rates, and it was kind of.
Sorry. So what is the question that you're asking specifically?
So the story of how it became, I don't want to say like a desperate moment, but that moment where you realize that I just need to just take this step and get it done. Like how did you? Because you said that you had become more sophisticated and understood more means, but you still had gone the short-term debt route.
So short-term debt in some instances were to facilitate. It was a form of receivables financing, because we do contracts with organizations. Some, a lot of it is government, and they don't always pay in that time frame that you want. And when you don't have enough cash on hand after doing the business, when you don't have enough cash on hand to run it. So we've always had a lot of money coming in relative to where we are. It has always been a timing issue. No sophistication or no sophistication, a balance sheet with large intangible assets. And I'm gonna ask you, so you don't really have no car, no land where you can use as collateral. Sophistication or not, you can't go around that, right? So you take what you can get. But thankfully, knock on wood, those days are behind us, right? We'll never have to do those things again. And that is when you will start to see the true growth of the company. Because our September 2021 numbers would have looked far better if between January and we had next to no financing costs or very little, right? Or bottom line would have. So even just from a efficiency perspective, less financing costs perspective, so without even doing any new significant business, the company will see the benefit of being a listed company in the bottom line. You don't need to be a sophisticated investor to understand that, right? So again, it's a little puzzling to me in the analysis that that somebody can't look on and say, all right, cool, financing costs are high. I wonder if it's high because when you look at their balance sheet, they don't have. When you look at their property and plant, it's negligible, right? So we're not a manufacturing company. We don't have cars and land. It's just not our area of business, right? So I think it is important to not look at Edufocal within the context of how we operated before, but having a conversation, which is why our projections are so important. It is important to look at a post-listed Edufocal, what a listed company can do, right? because a listed company is a powerful thing if you know what to do with it, right?
Yep.
And I'm not going in not understanding what a listed company can do, because I've been an investor myself through the equities market for a very long time, right? I get how one, and knock on wood, and again, this is not me saying that we're going to do that. You know, you can do rights issues, you can do APOs, there's a lot of things you can do as a listed company that you can't do as a private company, and certainly, so you can do rights issues and those things but certainly the position that we were in, because here's the thing, right? A lot of people don't realize that we're creating an entire new industry in Jamaica. It is a new type of company on the stock exchange. And some people say, "Oh, we hope this is not another iCreate." Well, one, I'm offended that they, in the sense that why are they trying to disrespect Tyrone Wilson and what he's doing? I think that he's also a young entrepreneur doing his thing, and he did what they can't. He listed, right? But again, it takes different companies to make up a marketplace. Now, if you're any kind of sophisticated, or if you're sophisticated in any investor in any way, don't talk in hyperbole or conjecture or suggestions or hints. Bring up the two goddamn balance sheets beside each other and compare them. Like, how are the two companies the same and how are they different, right? And do proper analysis, right? So yes, iCreate is they're a creative training company, and Tyrone started off with a physical form of training. That was his method, right? Look at our balance sheet. We the only physical thing we really have is our office that we don't own, and some laptops and stuff. So again, philosophy is important, and it's important that you understand what it is that the company is doing. So yeah, I mean,
I hope that's no beef with Tyrone.
No. Sorry, that's my point. I'm actually defending Tyrone. I'm saying that I find it weird that people try and take a jab at Tyrone and iCreate. It's unnecessary. It's unproductive, right? It's truly a waste of time. It's not, but hey, it is what it is. But big up Tyrone and big up iCreate, and I mean, I wish them much growth. Tyrone is a friend of mine and a fellow entrepreneur, and I have nothing but respect for him. Yeah.
Big up Tyrone.
Agreed. And big up Tyrone and iCreate for real.
Yeah.
Because I mean, you guys, especially as young people, I mean, I know we're younger, but we're not public. So I mean, you guys as young people who are helping to put some more depth to our stock market, I mean, is something that, especially I know us at the 876 Invest team, and I'm sure most investors in the island appreciate when there's, as you said, different types of companies that make up the market.
Yeah, you need diversity. I don't
want stray too far, Gordon. Let's get back into the Edufocal. Tell me, you have any plans for expanding in the region?
We always have expansion plans. It's just a matter of timing, right? So the prospectus does speak to the possibility of expansion, but I mean, I obviously can't speak in any definitive terms about what will happen. I will say stay glued to the JSC website and those those quarterlies and any other announcement that could possibly come. But look at it this way again. For a traditional Jamaican company, let's say a manufacturing company, to expand regionally or internationally, it's far different for a company like ours, because we're not exporting physical assets. We're exporting IP, and it can be done in different ways, right? So we're always interested in different opportunities, and I'm confident that decisions that we will make to the benefit of our shareholders will be reflected in the stock price. Will be reflected in our bottom line, and hopefully it's a delight to all our shareholders and the folks who decided to come in and believe in the vision and the mission of what we're doing.
Interesting, great. All right, so let me ask a better question then. Mm-hmm. Is there any plan to go back to the CSEC level of education?
It's not currently on our radar, to be completely honest, but again, I'm guided by my board and the rest of my management team, and we're always talking about new possibilities. So anything is possible.
Tricky guy, you think you're slick.
The CEO response, bro.
Anything is possible.
I'm saying.
The CEO response.
Anything is possible, Yeah.
All right, cool. So we see that this Edufocal platform is proprietary. You guys have developed it in-house. You built everything up from the ground up. given the potential scalability of the business, as far as you can see, is it something that all further developments you plan to do it in-house, or do you plan to like bring in people if the thing gets too rapid, or you know?
You can outsource your core business. That's like Grace outsourcing manufacturing or banking. I love Gracie, by the way. I keep using
it's fair,
the Grace example. Big up Grace.
We can proud
Yeah,
shareholder.
man. Actually, I'm not a shareholder like Grace right now, but who knows?
I am.
Okay, gosh,
I'll hold enough
no.
shares for the both of us.
Same.
Yeah, man, definitely. But you never know. Okay, gosh, my holding company might make some moves after the after the IPO. You never know. But I don't believe you can. I don't believe you can.
Filled with cash. That's what you're saying. You're saying, you know.
No. I'm a mere simple guy from Christiana. But no, you can't outsource your core business. Would be my answer to that. I believe in investing in people, or development team or engineering team is super important to the growth of the company, and the attracting new talent and retaining new talent is very important to us. And again, that is something that I believe is in the prospectus, and I think it's in the risk section actually. Very, very important that we retain, that we acquire and retain quality talent. Yeah.
What's the difficulty you find surrounding that locally, given the type of business you operate and where people are used to thinking that they're going to work and those kind of things? How you find in terms of sourcing and retaining talent? So
listen, the world is changing, and I think that COVID-19 has kind of shown us that talent is everywhere. So there's this saying that talent is universal and opportunity isn't. There's a lot of talent in Jamaica, for example, and companies are gunning for talent. International companies are gunning for talent, particularly engineering talent outside of Jamaica, talent in Jamaica. So we are not only competing with the large companies in Jamaica who need engineering talent, we're also competing with international companies. So it's important that we are rewarding our employees not only through financial compensation, salary, good salaries, but also ensuring that we're the perfect place to work, right? People have to be happy about where they work and have to be driven, around more than just money. So again, what I do is very, very important to me. I take it very seriously. And whether somebody's putting in $1,000 Jamaican dollars or $10,000 in Edufocal, I believe that I have an obligation. Not even I believe, I do have an obligation to ensure that we are growing the company, because they decided to take a bet on us, and I want to ensure that they can get good return on their investment. So talent acquisition is super important to us, and I think listing gives us more visibility, and kind of helps to show the world that, hey, we're not just this small company that is not being run properly. We are a properly run company. We're a growing company. We'll be a growth stock. So it's super important, and that's just a part of the mission in terms of listing. One of the reasons behind listing.
Question. So you mentioned the talent staying in-house, and as it is right now, the way how the learning is set up, it's not right now. Doesn't account for like persons coming on and just offering their own content. It is their proprietary content.
So we pay people to develop content for us, and then we retain the IP rights to the content.
Yeah, and it's going to be stay that way. That there's no intention for it to become like a marketplace for people to come and have the content. It'll be your own tailored content always.
No, I mean, things can change. Anything is possible. We could be a marketplace and a conduit for people to create their own content, and we act as a distribution hub for them. I mean, think about the Netflix model. Netflix creates its own content, but they also host third-party content, and they have special arrangements with vendors. So again, that is the beautiful thing about Edufocal, right? There's so many paths that we can take. There's so many ways to generate income, but I have to be reporting solid results every quarter. So I have to ensure that the decisions that we make are giving returns in a reasonable amount of time. Because some things are kind of like moonshot things, like, this could possibly be a good move for us, but you may not see return in 6 months on it. It may not reflect in the first 2 quarters, but it certainly may reflect in 4 quarters down the line. So again, as CEO, I believe I have a responsibility to ensure that with the limited resources, because you will always have limited resources, right? You don't know, no company, no organization has unlimited resources, so they have to be very, very diligent, or they have to be very deliberate about what, where they spend their time and energies. So it's super, super important. I mean, we could decide that, hey, we don't want to develop our content in-house just only. We may have a licensing arrangement with a Macmillan, for example. I'm again not saying that we're going to do that, but there are many possibilities. And when you're a listed company, you're far more attractive to other companies in terms of doing business with them. So there are many possibilities. I want to say it for the record that we're not going to be doing any business with Macmillan. There are no conversations. I'm just using them as an example because they produce content. Yeah, I hope that answers your question.
Fair. That a bit of free game on this. You guys have probably thought about that already. Dundas and I actually brought up how in Jamaica you have certain like extra class teachers who are extremely popular for certain subjects. I'd be like, it would be cool. There's an opportunity there to link those people and be like, hey, have some content on the platform, etc. So I mean, I know that you're right. There's myriad opportunities that you guys could do in the future, and I think it's a really great runway. But speaking of that, how do you think about developing the software for the scalability that you plan to, the scale that you plan to see, not even just the scalability, but you plan to see it grow? How do you plan to continue to develop and improve?
I see Edufocal not as a Jamaican company, but an international company. I see Jamaica as a stepping stone into many other possibilities, many other, because you have to think big, right? You can't think. I've traveled a lot, right? I've been to like 20 odd countries, and I realize that when I'm in Jamaica, I tend to kind of slow down in terms of my own productivity, because it's easy to kind of move at a pace that is not necessarily a productive pace, because in your day-to-day, you're interacting with other people external to you who may not be moving at a pace that is efficient. So you kind of pace yourself. But when you travel, particularly travel to the United States of America, people are so fixated on being productive, probably to their own detriment, right? But the point is, I have always seen Edufocal as an international company. I've always had international aspirations. I mean, we can't be myopic about how we think, of ourselves and the world. I think Jamaicans are great people. I mean, can you imagine Usain Bolt in Trelawney, sit down, and a man will tell him, say, but you want to run and become superstar? They'd probably tell him that it was not possible, right? So similarly,
True.
It's easy for me to say, hey, we want to expand, and a man will say, but you're a Jamaican company. Okay. But we have world-class talent, and what I'm producing can stand up to any other e-learning company on earth. The only thing that they have over us is capital, right? They have way more capital than us, but that's not going to stop me from having international aspiration ambitions for Edufocal. So if you link that back to what I was saying earlier, it's not a willy-nilly thing for me. I'm going to just get up and expand, because we have limited resources. Whether it is leveraging what it is that we currently do with the current platform we have, or an acquisition, anything we do in that era takes time, right? It's going to take time. And the question I have to always ask myself is this a good use of my time? So it's all good and well, it's buzzwords. A man can say, I'm expanding to the United States. But I'm not an idle talker. If I'm saying something, it's because I see clear potential. I understand that we are operating with limited constraints. I'm not going to go for something that's a moonshot thing that is going to, hit our top line or bottom line, and not necessarily giving the returns that I want for my shareholders in the time frame that they should have it. Yeah.
Makes sense. So I know that you're not gonna give me a direct answer, but let's just be real about some things. No disrespect to the company. I love the revenue growth and everything, but you have been having negative cash flow from operations, and we've seen how that has had to result in multiple rounds of financing very frequently. So is it fair to say that we can beg a rights issue?
I don't even know what a rights issue is, to be honest with you. I've read about it.
Here this man. Hear this
I mean,
guy.
I understand the concept in a very high level way, but I mean, I'll have a conversation with our investment banker Mayberry. I'll have a conversation with my CFO, but I'm not necessarily halfway with how a rights issue, what a rights issue is, how it is structured.
Not necessarily a rights issue per se. That's just my
But
preference.
to be clear, though, to be clear, we will have a significant amount of cash on hand after listing. We'll have a decent amount of runway, right? And remember, one of the things I spoke about earlier was that the receivables period after executing a job, right? Both on the business side and on the learn side, you don't necessarily get the cash in the time frame that you want. But when you have 10, 15 months worth of runway, if we can contain or burn, which we will, by the time the cash come in, you're still good because you'd have been sitting on a lot of cash anyway. So I can also almost confidently say that negative cash flow for Edufocal is likely a thing of the past, right? So unless I decide to get up some morning and do some crazy thing, which I won't, I will be a good steward of our resources. That is very, very important to me. So again, it is very important that people not look at 2021 or 2020 or 2019 Edufocal. That doesn't exist anymore.
I agree. Yeah.
Don't constrain yourself to what you saw in the past. Look to the future. Look forward. Look at what is possible. Right.
The runway is massive. I definitely agree with that.
The conversation has been about like what the company has done so far, and I'm trying to I do see a lot of potential. I'm not trying to sell the company here, but majority of what I see is mostly the future. Because as you said, literally the company, you had mentioned it earlier, I didn't want to jump in at the time, but you had mentioned even if you're just supposed to look at the fact that majority of what is taken from the bottom line was finance costs in the 9 months ended September. That's the purpose of the IPO. So once that's gone, it's a completely different company. Like
exactly. It's almost like you flip a switch. It's like
it's so clear to me. Just I don't know. I love the potential because it's a really different company. In terms of operating,
it's going to be, yeah, man, for sure.
In terms of the
you do realize that the company management could also decide that, hey, we want to kind of keep IPO cash and refinance, right? So we have one loan, right, that is long-term, low interest rate or relatively cheap interest rate. So it kind of like double the cash. So you keep IPO cash, have one loan, could possibly be sitting
and
on
stabilize the finance cost.
Correct. You're sitting on $200 or $300 million. You're burning only $8 or $9 million a month, right? Still growing the business, increasing monthly cash flow. I mean, so again, I am not saying we're going to do that. I am just using it as an example that there are different ways to skin a cat. There's just not one. And it is important that anybody not kind of pigeonhole themselves into one way of thinking. And certainly I don't do that as CEO. And it is important that, or at least I think it is important that people not think, in one way. A company is a very dynamic thing. Right, it is very, very dynamic in terms of how it operates, and there are different ways to do things.
So I see you mentioned this is something that I have to listen to carefully. Though you mentioned that the cash burn, negative cash flows, is likely a thing of the past. You didn't say likely. I'll say likely, but
likely. Yeah. I can't speak to the future. I don't know, but I would hope that it is a thing of the past.
So for a company of this nature, with tech, generally companies have to continuously spend on R&D and research and development, right? You mentioned that in the future it's likely going to be better off because of the cash balances. But is it because do you think that the company's growth phase, like most of the spending has already gone in, or you think you're going to decelerate in terms of R&D, or like why do you think that? Why do you think that is going to turn around at this point in time? Is it that you don't have to continue spending this much?
I think that a lot of the things that we've spent time building and positioning, it's what's it called now? It's trailing. You're not going to see the upside of it, or we wouldn't have seen the upside of it right away. But I'm confident, I am hopeful that what we've built, we can leverage it and see great returns over the next couple of quarters. So I can only be hopeful. I can't see into the future. and everything is a bet, everything is a gamble. It's just an educated guess. But I'm pretty confident that we can stabilize a lot of things, cut costs in a number of areas. We've spent a lot of time talking about financing costs, but the only way to acquire content is not just to develop it yourself. You could get, there are special ways that we can get content even without cash consideration, right? So there are many creative ways that we can do things to kind of continue to develop the company.
Nice. The business side, Edufocal business. That's an interesting thing for both Nicholas and myself, because for those who have read the prospectus or watched our IPO breakdown video, which should be out by the time this video comes out, you'll notice that we talk about the average revenue per user. So we've seen already there was a lot of pull forward one can expect for COVID, in terms of people jumping on users, the number, some people who may not be comfortable with the concept being forced to do it. So there is expected that there will be some pullback in the total user numbers. But what we've seen average revenue per user shoot up. I think it was 300% over the period. So can you expound on how important you think the Edufocal business side is? It seems to have some higher margins. How important you think it's going to be going forward?
So we have a tripartite agreement with the Transport Authority and BCIC. I mean, we're effectively responsible for the training of every single taxi driver in Jamaica. It's a very important partnership for us. It's a long-term partnership, and that's just one example of recurring revenue that can come from the business side. Not everything we do on the business side is recurring revenue, but certainly a lot of the things that we will be doing, it's going to create daily, weekly, monthly cash for us. And I think the business division is a big growth area for us. I'm bullish on both learn and business. I don't have a preference. I'm very excited about both, and I've been having some very interesting conversations. And I mean, I don't know if you can see the excitement in my face and my voice, but I mean, like, it's truly amazing, what I think is possible, with Edufocal. Is
there any insight you can give us onto some of the other types of clients that you have on the business side? I mean, if you can, but I mean, is there any type of
we don't work with a number of companies. I mean, big private sector companies, big companies
in the industry.
Banking. I mean, we've done work in the banking sector, and we plan to do more. We plan to do a lot more. So, yeah, man, it's an exciting time. Truly, I'm humbled that again, I keep going back to Mayberry, because truly, they took a bet on us, and I think that it was the right bet. But I'm truly humbled, and again, I've been doing this for 10 years, right? And I feel like it's a brand new company. I feel like I just registered it, the way I did in November 19, 2010, because that's when the company was registered. I remember it very well because it's it was the day after my birthday. My birthday was November 18, right? So not only is it a new Edufocal, it's a new Gordon. I'm 31 years old now. I have a son, I have a wife. I'm far more experienced. It truly is a different company. In a time where EdTech is seeing great growth internationally, because yes, we operate locally, but you have to also look at what is happening in the global context. It's EdTech companies are getting a lot of funding, they're getting a lot of opportunities, and it just so happens that a Jamaican entrepreneur, in the EdTech space, having experience in the EdTech space locally, is listing, right? With 5 years no income tax, another 5 years half. I mean, you can understand, not only are we positioned to grow locally, but the benefits that we get from listing, we can also leverage internationally, right? So you can't talk about Edufocal and not talk about what is going to come, because you don't have to speculate about certain things. You know that it is clear in the prospectus because we speak to it. We've spoken about debt and how inflexible debt has been for us and how it has affected the company. It is there for everybody to see. But it is also important to talk about the benefits of being a listed company in a junior stock exchange. No income tax, a lot of visibility, the ability to access cheaper financing, and just kind of map that back into what people see, what shareholders see, which is why when John Jackson wrote his article, he spoke about, how Edufocal, looks good based on 2020 earnings. I mean, John Jackson is not going to put out that kind of article if he does not genuinely believe that, because he didn't touch on the past. He realizes, 2022 numbers we are looking on, forward-looking PE is where it's at, right? So, yeah, that's my view there.
So on the business side of things, so so typically
that's a very valid point about that article.
True that. Never
Right,
lie.
Nicholas.
Yeah. So based on conversations, the first concern will be the fact that COVID has basically expedited the growth, especially on the learn side of things. And based on what I see with the average revenue per user, I see that the business side of things has helped to offset the pullback. Since we have less users, higher revenue, that's clear to me. But would you be able to speak to the percentage of total revenue that the business currently takes up?
I'd say about 40%. About 40%. Okay. Yeah, about 40%.
Okay, cool.
But I expect it to actually even out. I expect it to be about 50-50 in 2022. Yeah.
You expect the business to overtake the growth at any point?
No. Not necessarily. It's kind of hard to say because both have so much growth potential. Both have so much growth potential. I love both of them. I think yeah, I'm bullish on both of them. It's hard to say. It's very, very hard to say. They're in stiff competition.
That's very interesting because Dundas has his money on the business and I got my money on the growth.
Yeah, but either way, both are going to grow. It's just a matter of which one is going to grow faster than the other. And I think,
yep.
I'll have a conversation internally, but I would also look into maybe publishing, quarterly is just kind of showing the segmentation. So we'll see.
I personally, as an investor, would appreciate that, and I know you as a man who invests locally, hate how much we're starved for information sometimes. I mean,
I think transparency is important.
It is. I definitely agree.
Yeah, about the transparency.
No, I do. Trust me, because again, remember, I'm an investor too. So I see people, for example, complain about results not being released. That the Excel version of it, for example, we can actually just manipulate the numbers, not just a PDF. So simple things. I get it, right? I'm new to it on this side, so we'll see. Why things are the way they are, but
just do what you can for us, Gordon.
Yeah,
really innovative company, local investor. The struggle. Just do what you can for us, man.
For sure, I'm not making any guarantees, but I will try.
It's a man for the people.
Right. That's right. All right. I touched on just the clients that you have on the business side. You can give any insight into how the schools are made up on the PEP side? You get any more, like rural versus urban areas, what we would call more traditional schools, etc., etc. What's
mostly urban? Most of our business comes from your usual suspects: St. James, St. Catherine, Kingston, and St. Andrew. Then you have the others kind of falling, behind Manchester, Clarendon, etc. So what you would expect. So we do have a lot of data, by the way, that we have no plans of exploiting, because privacy is very, very important. But it does inform a lot of our decision making for sure, just in terms of how we operate. But we do have a lot of data.
Very cool. Now let's get into the whole COVID and how it has affected the business, and how it will continue to affect the business going forward. So as we have mentioned a few times, it can be said that COVID brought forward or expedited some of the growth that was on Edufocal's path. I know you said that you expected to hit some of these numbers, but if you were telling me you plan to 5x the revenue based off of what you did in 2019, I'd be like, you you're seeing some things, man. You're seeing the future. You get me? So, I mean, let's talk about it. How do you, as I said earlier, there'll be some pullback. How do you think about limiting that pullback as well as getting back on that growth of users?
So when you say getting back to normal, right? What does that mean?
No, getting back in growth in terms of
No, man, I'm talking about COVID-19 and how it has affected Jamaica and the rest of the world. What does getting back to normal mean for Jamaica?
When I say normal, it's definitely a new normal, but it's just as we see, there's more opening up face-to-face school. People may be going back to extra class teachers that they already know, GSAT, PEP classes that they may have already been familiar with, those kind of things. When you look at those kind of challenges facing Edufocal going forward, how you think about them and how and to mitigate those kind of things?
So you do know that we actually have extra classes as in Edufocal,
man.
Right? Daily extra classes, and we have a full-time school, right?
A full school, yeah, man.
Those numbers have not been declining, you know, and are actually
that is important.
Now, and they're actually better now than they were in the height of COVID. So I guess the question is, if there's a post-COVID world, you know, I'm not sure when that date is, and I'm not sure what it looks like, because, you know, I think they say it takes how long does it take to make a habit? A month?
Yeah, I think it's 3 weeks or something like that.
Days, yeah.
Consistently.
And how long have people been doing online learning now?
Fair.
I feel like, you know, so what you have to also appreciate is an entire new generation of kids who are used to learning around a computer, even if they're currently fatigued.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So there are a lot of things that I'm personally doing now that I don't want to go back to. I love virtual meetings. Sometimes I link up in person with people, you know, but I love this. I love sitting at my computer from home doing the interviews. It's now a part of my life. And, you know, in this so-called post-COVID world that people talk about, I don't know what we're going to kind of handpick to choose to take. And, you know, it's a weird thing, right? So, you know, we have to be mindful about what, you know, I think we should define what a post-COVID world is, because people have permanently changed. I certainly have changed. I'm not the same person that I was prior to March 2020. And I suspect that a lot of people in Jamaica and elsewhere are not the same. So I think schooling in the screen, education from a screen is here to stay. Even if you have some fall off in the numbers, I think the numbers are going to be large enough that it will help to sustain and grow the business in the short, medium, and long term.
That's true. And I mean, I am in agreement with you that I do think learning via screen is here to stay. I mean, this is a completely separate conversation, but I am a believer that even colleges and universities as institutions that are necessary are on their way out. We'll move towards more short course-based learning, specialized skills. I'm of that belief. Completely different.
Listen, let me tell you something. April 2020, you can go and check it yourself. This is like 4 weeks after COVID came along. I am quoted in the newspaper talking about how the hybrid learning approach is the way of the future. Hybrid means both physical and online. I've been advocating that 3 weeks after COVID came along. So again, and that is here to stay. I'm telling you that is a fact, right? It is going nowhere. So, and I'm not saying that because, you know, it is to my interest. I'm just a man of the numbers and a man with the research. I look and I see what is happening in the United States and elsewhere, and that is what is happening, right? So
I 10,000% agree.
Yeah, man.
We're giving kids tablets and iPhones from them can
remember, not necessarily your industry guys, but the government of Jamaica was talking about the Tablets in Schools program before COVID-19. We were supposed to be a part of the Tablets in Schools program. People don't remember. People have short memories. They don't remember what was happening in Jamaica before COVID-19. The Tablets in Schools program has been around since 2014. We were a part of the original Tablets in Schools program. Right.
I remember being upset because we were going to graduate while it was being in the negotiations.
Yeah, man. So you know, people have short memories and they've forgotten what the world was like and the conversations that were being had before COVID-19. So it's easy to make, you know, these points about, you know, and that's, you know, I suspect that when we move from 300 to 600 million to 900 million to a billion, people are going to say, is it sustainable? You know, are you benefiting from the post-COVID? You know, are you benefiting from COVID? Like 9 years later, you ask me if we're still benefiting from, you know, are you benefiting from World War II? You know what I mean? And the positive things that happened as a result of how the world changed after that World War, you know. So listen, there are many things that cause a shift in the zeitgeist of the world and how we operate. And a lot of people have changed, and hybrid learning, online learning is the way of the future as far as I'm concerned. And clearly that's what we believe in. That's the business that we're in, and we've taken a bet there. Yeah.
Strong bet too.
Yeah, big bet. So, and I took this bet from 2012.
That is the most impressive part.
Yeah,
people forget the first iPhone, which kicked off the smartphone wave, came out 2008.
Yeah. So we're not brand new, but we're not brand new. I'm not.
There.
Yeah, we got into this space in 2012.
Yeah, because I saw this thing.
Yeah, man, because I saw where the world was going. So yeah.
Given that these exams, so you guys are focused on PEP when it comes on to the education side of things.
Mm-hmm.
PEP has a fixed exam date. Do you find that your revenues there's any seasonality to it in any way? Like, let's say people January term, they come and them say, all right, now we're going to get deep in the sign up or anything. Is there anything like that?
Yeah, so I mean, Q1 and Q4, Q1 tail end of Q3 and Q4 are generally very good for us. But there are a lot of things that we're looking at that I believe can add a lot of diversity to our business. And I think we'll permanently have seasonalities in anything that we do. But I think over time it will become less visible when Edufocal is having seasonality, just because of the different areas that we'll potentially be generating revenue from. Right. So again, we're not like a traditional business where it's hard to activate new revenue lines. It is far easier for a company like ours to activate new revenue lines, and almost like sometimes overnight seeing new revenue flowing into the company. So we're not a PEP company. We do PEP. It's one of our signature things, but certainly I think it's important to not pigeonhole us into being a PEP company. We're an education technology company. Yeah.
Very fair. I'm sorry, sir.
No. It's fine, because again, that's my bad. That's what I've spent 10 years marketing us as. So, I have to kind of live with that.
That's fine. But one more thing on the whole PEP situation, though. This is something we spoke about in the IPO breakdown as well. Students sit PEP once, like not even like common entrance where you could sit and you be like, I don't like that school, I go and sit it again. Like, you sit it once, it's guaranteed over. How do you think about dealing with clients like that? We were saying there's clients where they may have multiple children, so you may have those people lined up throughout different children, but I mean, each client is a one-off, no? On that side of things.
But let me ask you a question. Them have a thing in them say Jamaican answer question. But let me ask you a question, right? Do kids remain kids?
No.
Kids grow up, right?
Yeah, but I mean, what are you saying? You're going to say when they have theirs?
What do kids do when they grow up?
School? Them stop go school.
They find jobs, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I see where you're going.
Yeah, I see where you're going. Earlier with the whole the linkage from start to finish with offering more things. But yeah, bro, the future.
The thing is slick, I mean, as I'm telling you, opportunities, man, opportunities.
No, look, employers are always looking for good employees, and a child who is with us doing PEP, they move on to secondary school, and after they're finished, and let's say we develop a curriculum for 7 to 11, we have them for grades 4, 5, and 6. We have them for 7 to 11, and there's always a possibility of, for example, helping them to get placed in jobs that are looking for students with that, and companies will pay for sourcing good talent, and remember, a child that is with Edufocal from as early as 9 years old, they develop brand attachment and brand loyalty because we help them to pass their PEP exam. Mm-hmm. Gamification, they loved it.
Yeah, that's true. I still recommend people to my accounts extra class teacher for CSEC for real.
There you go. So there's a level of attachment and emotion attached to. I remember those kids again become adults that could possibly become shareholders in Edufocal too. I actually saw a tweet from somebody who used Edufocal as a child, and she she was excited to buy, into the IPO. I mean, again, you have to speak to your licensed financial advisor. I can't encourage anybody to buy or start, but certainly, if if it makes sense and the risk profile fits your needs, then jump all in. Yeah.
That's right. None of this as financial advice, guys.
None of it is financial. None of it. This is just a conversation.
Exactly.
Nothing forward looking, really. It's just really saying, a lot of things that can happen. But strictly speaking, the prospectus, highlights where we are. It speaks to some of the things that we could be possibly looking at. But the business is the business, and it is clear in the prospectus what the business is. So, let's see how things go.
And by the way, I have to really comment that it is clear in the prospectus. That prospectus was so comprehensive.
I mean, we did a lot. Listen,
all right,
that's a lot of work. How long it took us to kind of flesh that out. It's a lot of, it took a lot of time, but I think it was important. It was very important to me that people, they got the information that they needed to make the decisions to make an informed decision. Yeah.
On behalf of
and big up to the FSC and the JC. I mean, strong institutions, strong Jamaican institutions with a lot of talented people who, really set us on the right path in terms of structuring the prospectus, in a great way. So yeah, man, big up to the Financial Services Commission, big up to the Jamaica Stock Exchange, strong people, strong leadership, and we're grateful for the opportunity.
Let me tell you, big up all parties involved, because for those who know me as an investor privately, transparency is one of my biggest issues. I always have questions, and I feel like the answer should be in the document, because we're public. So I'm not going to get the chance to go into the company and see what's going on. Now we have a platform where we're able to speak with CEOs, but the average person not going to be able to just call the CEO, get him to ask the questions that you want to ask about the company. So I'm a firm believer in letting it all be out there on the page. Yeah,
I agree with you, man. And I think we're entering into a new, again, big up you guys, 876 Invest. I think you're doing good work. I think you're doing great work. You're asking the right questions and really giving access to the people. So, yeah, man, big up on yourself.
We appreciate that.
I'm a big fan.
Thank you.
Listen, I'm big on supporting people and what they're doing, man. That's important, because I wouldn't have gotten to where I've gotten to without support. I mean, look at my cheer. We didn't just start our board to list, as I've seen in the past. We've been around, so even as a little youth, I understood the importance of good corporate governance, and the board may not have met every single month, but we met on a regular basis, and that was always important to me, having somebody with more experience in the form of Peter Levy, who really has been such a great mentor to me, such a great chairman to Edufocal, and he's all in. He has put he has skin in the game. And he's just as invested as I am in the company's growth, as are the rest of the board. Yeah.
It's right.
And I mean, who knows? You might see, our next report with the entire management team, our shareholders in the company. That's as far as I've seen, is not normal. It's not normal that when that you see employees kind of just jumping all in and investing in the company that they work at. So, yeah, man, for sure, it's super important. Yeah. Buying is important.
Yeah, but and even though we definitely think they should buy, I know Randy, big up Randy again. Randy is one of the greatest proponents for, if you work at a listed company, make sure you own shares. Or if the company feel like it good, just make sure you own the shares. And I am definitely in agreement with that as well. It shows confidence to me when you have the principals and the people involved in day-to-day running of the company.
Agreed.
Having a shareholding.
Speak to your financial, feature licensed financial advisor.
Definitely, that big up again.
But certainly, if it makes sense, I'd say definitely jump in for management and others. Yeah.
I think we're trying to wrap up here, so I just got a few more questions, Gordon, and then we can get everything.
No problem.
So, you've spoken a few times to the government and their impact on your receivables. I think they're about 70% of the receivables through that partnership with the Ministry of Education, you said?
Yeah, around.
And as we've spoken, as I said, government payback timelines, the credit terms may be the credit terms, but the actual deliverance of the funds may be a different thing entirely. I know you said that you plan to have some cash reserves and those kind of things, but do you anticipate that being any kind of challenge going forward?
So I'll say to you, government may not pay on time, but they pay. um, you can rest assured that government pays, but we're not just dependent on government for our sales. And again, certainly one of our intentions is to expand our sources, both through retail customers, people who visit us and purchase, but also ensuring that we're working with other entities, other companies, non-government entities that are just aligned with the vision and want to benefit from what it is that we're doing. So as I said, I'm confident. Let me not use the word confident. I am hopeful that we can get our receivables period down. That's super important to us. Hopefully maybe at the end of 2022, I'll jump back on the show again if you guys invite me, and we can look at the Edufocal
Always
balance
welcome.
sheet. Compare.
Welcome.
We can compare full year 2021 to 2022, and we can talk about how different of a company it is, and the moves that we would have made in 2022.
We'll hold you to that. Don't play
Absolutely.
around. Make sure you make the time. You just make sure you make the time. You're going to be a busy CEO of a listed company at that time.
Yeah, man, absolutely. Yeah, man, I'll make the time for sure. I'll make the time. Listen, I made the time now. I have a son and a wife, and I'm tired, in the middle of listing. But yeah, again, I think this is important. So, yeah.
And we definitely appreciate it. To close up, we'd like you to tell us about some interesting deals that were on the table, but for whatever reason never ended up materializing.
I can't say. Just know that it's important to ignore the noise, focus and execute on the
INFP.
yeah, man. In fact, it's important to focus on growth, and you can hope for growth, but you have to actually work towards making it happen. So I don't focus a lot on the past. I look at the past and I look at the mistakes that we made, but then from there I just keep it moving and focus on growth. So whether a deal happened or it didn't happen is not important to me. What is important is I am bullish on growing the company and ensuring that we hit our numbers in the time frame that we said that we would.
You got the CEO speak down already. I can tell you that, my guy.
I watched the YouTube videos. Yeah, man,
that's cool. We got serious. It's been lovely to have you. Last thing I will ask. Last thing I'll ask.
Yeah,
2 book recommendations as somebody who says they read a lot. Now, let me be straight with it. I don't want Rich Dad Poor Dad.
Yeah.
I don't want Think and Grow Rich. I don't want 50 Laws. I don't want any of that.
Yeah,
Give me deep cuts. We spoke to some people. I got Barbarians at the Gate, RJ and Nabisco. So that one's not on the list either. So let's go.
So I'm rereading David Allen's Getting Things Done. G2D system, is super important, and his book. I love what you call source books that kind of literally created an entire industry. And David Allen created this entire concept of productivity, right? So he has sent out a new version of the book, revised for the modern world. It's an old book, so that Getting Things Done by David Allen is one, and another one that I would actually recommend is not a specific book, but anything from the let me actually find it. Anything from the 37 Signals guys. I'm big fans of them. Their product is called Basecamp. The 2 guys in it are the 2 main people is Jason Fried and let me just find it. Sorry, Basecamp. Sorry, I'm just bringing it up, folks. All right, getting rework by David Hennemer and Jason Fried, and basically anything from them. Like I've read all of their books. I would definitely recommend anything from those guys. Super good books. What else would I recommend? I mean, I'm rereading David Allen's book right now. But let me just tee up my Kindle app.
Big up Amazon every time.
Good book. I would recommend Reed Hastings from Netflix. No Rules. Netflix. I think that's what the book is called. I would also recommend The Effective Executive by Peter Drucker, and one of my favorite books of all time, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Super powerful book. I loved Trevor Noah's book, Born a Crime.
Born a Crime.
Yeah, man, super good book. And I realized that going through my books now, I realized I love books on productivity. I'm a little bit addicted. I started reading Marlon James's A Brief History of Seven Killings a while back. I didn't finish. It was a little too much for me. I'm not a big fiction guy, and I mean, Seven Killings not necessarily fiction, but Steven Pinker, really great guy. The Better Angels of Our Nature. Better Angels of Our Nature, Why Violence Has Declined. That's a super important book. People actually think, and it's so funny within the context that we are right now, that we're living in violent times, but the world was a far more violent place 50, 60 years ago. The world is actually more peaceful now than any other time in history, despite what you're seeing in the news. Another book. You see, I have a lot of book recommendations. I'm not just like a fake reader, Right?
Keep them coming. I was going to say, it sounds like we should link up off the call afterwards, because I have a 50 book long list that sounds like you might want to look at.
Yeah, man. Vital Friends by Tom Rath, gives you a great appreciation of understanding friendship and the dynamic of friendship and how important friendship is. Yeah, man. So that's off the top of, Ray Dalio. Oh, Ray Dalio Principles, another good one. Yeah, man. So I could go on and on. I'm a book guy,
You said CEOs read 52 books in a year?
That's bullshit. No, that's bullshit, to be honest with you. I don't read 52 books a year. So my philosophy around books is I focus less on the amount and more on the value I get from each one. So some in a single year I may do 6 books. I may do 10. It depends on how fast I'm reading and how much. Because there's this what you call it's like bragging rights. I read 50 books this year. Okay, who cares? I mean, what is the actual value that you do? So I have a whole system around reading books. First and foremost, you have to understand and appreciate that books are a concentrated source of information, right? So somebody busted their ass, did all of that hard work to put everything in a book. Not to say that everything in it is 100% accurate, but they spent time on a book, right? It's kind of like you reading the prospectus and you just breeze through. There's a lot of work to get to that point and having all of that information in one place, right? Now, what I also do is I have a Kindle. I don't read physical books. Everything is read through my physical Kindle. I highlight and I make notes around everything that I highlight. It syncs up in Evernote, syncs up in Notion, and I go through so I go through and I kind of regularly, refresh my memory in terms of the value that I got from the book. And I could go on. I have a whole system of reading, very exciting stuff. But yeah.
That sounds great. Gordon, it's been amazing to have you. It's been a wonderful conversation. Thank you again for taking the time, guys. I know this is going to be a long one. Thank you for those who are still here at this point in the video. But I mean, I think it's been very, very valuable. You've given a lot of insight. We had so many questions that you provided some perspective on. Again, none of this is financial advice. Read the prospectus, speak with the licensed financial advisor.
Please.
But I think it's going to be useful to people who just want to understand a bit more about the company. It's really great. So thank you again for coming.
Yeah, and some of them should go to Edufocal.com and sign up and try and test out stuff. Like it's actually a real company with the real things. You don't have to just read the prospectus. If you have kids, get them signed up. Grades 4, 5, and 6. I have to promote my company and push sales. So I'll close, guys, by saying, listen. None of what I've said to you is hubris on my part. I mean, I'm, again, great sense of conviction around Edufocal. I love it dearly. I really believe in our mission and what we're doing. I love my team. I love everybody. I love all of my future investors, all of my future shareholders. And I'm humbled to be here tonight, as I've said. And thank you for taking the time out to talk to me. And I hope that the people who do watch it find it useful. And if their licensed financial advisor gives them the green light, they jump in and they invest. Yeah. So definitely thank you for having me.
Thank you again. All right, everybody. It's been Schaunn-Anthony Thomas and Nicholas Dundas from 876 Invest here with Gordon Swaby. Thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Take care, guys. Peace.